Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Blueprint by Smoking Gun. Today, I've got one of my great friends, Max Hansen. Max Hansen, he has a company called Y Scouts. He'll tell you all about how to pick and choose, who you want to hire for your company. He's also an author, and he'll tell you all about that here in a little bit. Super excited about having him on here, so stay tuned. Here we go. Max, my man, thank you so much for coming today.
It's great to be here.
I don't want to go through the whirlwind of what we did today, but there was delay after delay after delay, so I apologize. And I'm super thankful you hung in there for me because I think you have a lot to offer everybody. So thanks for sticking it out with me.
Thanks for being here. I got to know your team, which was awesome. So I learned a little bit about what you guys are doing, and I'm excited to have this conversation and glad we were able to catch up.
Yeah, you met the left brain, right brain team over there. So creative one side, digital super brainiacs the other, so super excited. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I am originally from Spokane, Washington. I spend the winters in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I spend the summers in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you was a what do they call that? A winter bird?
A winter bird, yeah. When you're in, when you live in Arizona, you figure this out. I've been in Arizona since 1981.
Yeah.
You live in Arizona, it's a great place.
Yeah.
But you figure out how to get out of there during the hottest time. And so I think we've figured it out. Like most people drive north, which I used to have a cabin in northern Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, live on the lake, spend a lot of time on the water, boat, and do a lot of golf and live on a golf course and do a lot of golf. And in fact, we were just talking about, I live in Gaza Ranch, which is it's a discovery property up there. Live on a golf course, and it's called the Gaza Grind. And I don't want to take credit for it because, but the Gaza Grind is you get up in the morning, you work out. And we get into working out. I try to work out a good amount. Mm-hmm. And then I play like an hour of pickleball, and then I work all day, and then I play 18 holes of golf or more, and then you start over because the sun doesn't go down until 10:30. It's beautiful, but that's the Gaza Grind.
That sounds horrible. Like, who would want to do that? Sign me up real quick.
Well, and to give credit, Matt Kuchar is my neighbor up there, and he's the one that told me because him and his boys, they do the Gaza Grind every day. So that's where it came from. So I'll give credit to him.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me know next time we're down and we're going to do the Gaza Grind.
We got to get you up there. 100%. I haven't forgot about that. Like we got to do it. Like schedule it. Like right now for next summer. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, let's do that. As you know, I'm an avid golfer too. So I'd love to get up there and do that. We just had our tournament this last week. So we shot the record score at a 55 in a 3-man scramble. That's the lowest score that's ever happened. So
are you serious?
Yeah, real deal. So it was good, man. 13 years. My buddy passed away 13 years ago in a skiing accident. So we've been raising money for him for 13 years. Just past $500,000 that we raise money for. And we give it 100% of away to charities.
That's amazing.
But it was cool, man. It was cool to win it. Put a tear in my eye. It was really, really, really emotional for me. So it was good.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you very much. So the Gaza Grind is kind of where you're at right now. So you started out, you grew up in Phoenix. You said you grew up in Phoenix?
Yeah, I grew up in Glendale, Arizona, which is the west side of Phoenix, which is like the not nice side, which is kind of I hail from Glendale, Arizona. Yeah.
Okay, and family played a big role with you growing up.
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 4, so I got one older brother, 2 older sisters, lots of nieces and nephews, big family. So family was a big part. Playing a lot of sports when I grew up was something I did. I was definitely an athlete. I'd still actually, as an old man, as a 50-year-old, I consider myself still an athlete, like mentally. But played a lot of sports. You name it, played a lot of sports.
Yeah, I feel that. For us that play a lot of sports, we always joke, we call ourselves athletes with an F, athlete. I mean, that's what it is. I really feel like, your 30s are, some of your prime years of getting better. But man, 40s for me, I've still outperformed myself in some areas. I've gotten better in, a lot of things, a lot of areas. Some things I'm not as good at, but some things I've gotten even better as I've gotten into my 40s. So,
yeah. No, I mean, from a strength standpoint,
yes.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just as strong as I was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I totally get it. Mm-hmm. Like I'm fit. I turned 50 this year in January, so I'm super focused. Like one of the things I want to do is be in the best shape of my life when I turn 50.
That's cool.
And I got a little off track this summer, which we'll circle back around to, just from traveling and doing some cool stuff. But I got a little out of shape. Not working out for 3 weeks was a lot for me not to work out. So I'm getting back in it. I've been 2 weeks back in, so I'm getting back on track. So
isn't it crazy how fast time flies when do you feel any different than you did when you were 35 years old? Like,
no, not really. I'd just say time does pass by a little bit faster, than it used to, for sure. Yeah.
I'll be 48 in a couple of months, so we're pretty close. But I really feel like I have the same outlook. I'm a little calmer than I used to be, so which is a good thing. But I really feel like mentally, I still take a challenge on the same way. Probably even more now as I get older. But I do respect time, I would say, probably more than I ever have at any other time in my life, because I just notice it's fleeting. I've never known the clock to fly so fast, and I'm sure it's going to just speed up the older I get. But it seems to be that way.
No, 100%. Yeah, time is our greatest resource for sure.
So you went to high school in Phoenix? I mean, in Arizona as well?
I did. I went to a small Catholic high school. Played. I lettered in 4 sports. That's okay. I mean, it was a small high school. I mean, it was the type of school where, and I love this about me and my brother. My brother was, he went and played college football. I went and played college baseball for a little bit, but it was a type of school where, playing football, for example, I know your son and you're into football. Like I played quarterback, I punted, I returned punts, I returned kickoffs. I never left the field. That type of like atmosphere. I mean, that's what I was used to doing.
Yep.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's just what we did.
That's the best. And I think there's a lot of things that happen in high school sports that really build towards a future of understanding like what it's like to work on a team as well. I've always used, the description of, look, a shortstop's not going to win it by himself. Second baseman's not going to win by himself. Pitcher can put a lot of lock on it, but if he ain't got defense behind him, so you need all these different elements inside of a game to actually succeed. And in work, it's the same way, right? You don't want a bunch of duplicates of yourself. You want people with a variety of strengths. Yeah,
100%. I think I love football most, but I didn't play baseball in high school till I was a junior, and finally they convinced me to play baseball. But I was a catcher, and I hadn't played for 2 or 3 years. But I at this small school, I batted. I think I hit .520 when I was a junior and .560 when I was a senior as a leadoff catcher.
That's cool.
Which was like, to your point, for me, it was about like having command of the field and blocking balls on the team's behalf, and then getting on base, first. So for me, that like encapsulated kind of my personality and what I think as a team member and as a leader, you should be. So anytime I see a kid that is like, a catcher, like a kid that's catching, I'm like, that's you. I don't know what it does to their knees because I didn't do it for that long, but love to see a catcher that's willing to block every ball for his team and keep.
I mean, you got to be hard nosed at that point too, right? You're taking some licks.
Oh yeah. I had my coach was a college catcher, and like he'd throw balls in the dirt. I mean, you just gotta be okay with blocking it and take a lot of balls in the arms, and you're gonna you gotta just keep it in front of you. So no, I think catching's like the coolest like position in baseball by far. Yeah,
I dug that as well. I played outfield, center field, left field, and third base. But those were good times, man. We played all the way up into our 20s, and I got a group of those guys that I still hang out with. Some of my best friends of my life are guys that I started at 12 and finished in my 20s playing with, and so still talk to each other every day, 3-4 times a day, So you build a lifelong relationship with people that you go to war with,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Where did you go to college at?
I played baseball at Glendale Community College, which was a community college in Glendale, Arizona. I have to say I underestimated how competitive baseball was there. My dad played baseball at Gonzaga, and since I had 2 good years of baseball, I thought that was my path. And man, I got to say, when I got there, that was like, if I had to talk about a low point in my life, it was quitting playing sports.
Yeah.
But the reality was that these guys were really good at baseball, and they were much more into it than I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize that you had a lot of Hispanic guys that were coming in to play in that community college to get drafted.
Yeah.
In fact, I played catcher. We were talking about that. So I started as a catcher in this Mexican dude, awesome dude. He threw from his knees faster than I could throw from my feet. And I was throwing from my feet in like just over 2 seconds, leather to leather. But he was like 1.8 from his knees. So that was a wake up call in itself. You know what I mean? I'm like that's just something that you have or you don't. So anyway, that was a wake up call. And then I ended up going to NAU, which was in Flagstaff, and it was a good education. I wouldn't send my child to NAU. And that's why I'm here to see my son at SMU. But NAU, I don't mean to bad talk it because it was a while ago, but I went to the College of Business, and I kind of felt like, again, I'm not saying this, I'm not bad talking them, but back then, it's a hippie school. I had all these like professors telling me like how to do business. And before it was all said and done, I was kind of thought about it. I'm like, these dudes have been at this school teaching for 20 years, probably smoking weed. And they haven't been doing business anywhere except in Flagstaff as a teacher. So I don't know if they know.
How do they know? Yeah, times change, right?
I think things are hopefully different now where like they bring in entrepreneurs more often and you get more like, more contact with people actually doing business, I hope. But it was okay. I just wouldn't send my kid there, especially if you wanted a business degree.
So what made you choose business?
Honestly, I started as a physical therapist major, and I was, a lot better at math than I was English. Still, I am. And quite honestly, it got super hard. And I was like, I didn't really know if I really was passionate about being a physical therapist. So business was kind of the default. But I'm glad I chose that because I kind of feel like it's appropriate now for sure.
And you were like, once you got into the business side of it, you were thinking like, I'm going to go work for somebody, or are you thinking I need to build my own thing?
Nobody in my family was really too entrepreneurial. Like my grandfather was a police officer for 20 years or 25 years and then retired and then, owned some stuff. But I think I got into business school as like kind of that default. And then the class that lit me up was entrepreneurship, like 425 or something like that. That's when I was a senior. And that's when I was like, oh shit, I think this is like interesting. And that's where I started to think about, kind of trying, maybe thinking about doing my own thing. So that's when it kind of started, and it didn't happen for about 2 or 3 years after I left college. But for sure, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And one side of me now thinking about college is I think if you went out and worked for a year or two and then you went back to college, I think you'd be better served because you know why you're learning the stuff versus you're learning all this shit that you don't know how you're going to use it.
Right.
But that's just my opinion.
So what about that one class specifically was what lit you on fire about it?
I think it just the creativeness and like starting something new and doing it like, your own way. And then like reading case studies on other successful entrepreneurs, the ideas that they had and the passion around it. I don't know. I think down deep, there was something inside of me that I thought in a very humble way that I could translate, being successful in sports and being a leader in sports to being successful in business. And I thought it could be done through entrepreneurship. I didn't know it was going to be the way it did, the way it would go down the way it did. But I don't know. It was just interesting to me. The other sides of business, like learning like ethics and accounting and stuff like that, at the time, like didn't really interest me that much. Because I wanted to go like start something and make it mine, which I ended up doing.
Did you ever reach out to anybody and say, you know what, I'm thinking about doing my own thing? Like, did you have any conversations with people?
Yeah. So the way I got into the business I'm in was I got when I graduated from NAU, I knew the one thing that you don't want to do is get stuck in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's a beautiful place. You snowboard a lot, which I snowboard a lot, still do. And so I knew I had to get out of there. So I immediately, when I graduated, I packed my car. I drove to San Diego, and my brother lived there, and I like slept on his couch. He lived in a 1-bedroom like condo in PB. I learned how to surf, smoked weed, like did all that, and I was looking for a job, but I technically I didn't. I actually went to a couple of interviews and I didn't get it. I actually went to I don't even know if I've ever talked about this before. I had a buddy that worked at Enterprise, and finally I was like, well, fuck it. I'll go to Enterprise and get a job. So he refers me, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to work at Enterprise. I went to work there and I didn't get the job. So anyway, long story short, I had a good buddy from college, and he was working for Aerotech, which was a recruiting company in Phoenix. And he's like, come out here and interview. And so I did, and that's how I got into the recruiting business. I started working at Aerotech, which is a pretty interesting business because most people don't know that Stephen Busciotti, the founder of Aerotech, he owns the Baltimore Ravens now.
Okay.
Like nobody talks about him. Like he's an incredible business, still is incredible business guy. I think he still owns a good portion of Allegis Group, if I'm not mistaken, which owns Aerotech. But he grew Aerotech to whatever it was, 500 million, went hands on. Then he bought the Baltimore Ravens for like, I don't quote me on these numbers, but like probably 200 or 300 million. Now they're worth like 3 billion or something. You know what I mean? And he still owns this company that he was running. Like, what other path would you want than to be a business person that runs a reputable recruiting company and then also, consulting, and they do a bunch of other stuff too, MSPs. And then you buy a sports team and then you run a sports team and then you still own so I don't know. So that was, but anyway, that's where I learned the business. I didn't know that it would influence me as much as it did when it was all said and done. But I started there, worked there for 2 years. It was a great company, but it was the type of company where they promoted from within, which was great.
Yeah.
But I knew like the people around me were so cool that I knew I was in this natural line to be promoted. And like I wasn't waiting to be promoted. Like I wasn't going to stick around and be the company guy. I mean, back then we lived in Phoenix and we had to wear white shirts. We could only wear white or blue shirts and we had to wear ties every day. So now like this is how I dress every day. And this isn't how probably most typical people that do retained executive search dress because maybe I don't wear the hat, but we're pretty casual. Like because of that experience, and it wasn't because I disliked it. It's just I wanted to do it different, and I don't 100%. Think that wearing a tie is necessary. Yeah. But anyway, so I started there, and then I left to go make a little bit more money, which is kind of laughable at this other company that was owned by somebody else. Okay. It was like my sister's friend's wife's husband. Smaller recruiting company. I won't get into it because I'll probably bad talk them a little bit. So I went there though, and I was like. They gave me, I don't know, $10,000 more on a salary or something. And at the time, I thought that was good. Ooh. Yeah. And so I got there and I was like, I felt like as soon as I got there, I mean, this company that I went to, this was only in 2000. They just really started using computers. Like, I mean, they were pretty behind the eight ball, but they made a ton of money. They were in recruiting. They did a lot of skilled trades recruiting. Anyway, what I learned is like, I wanted to run, I told them, I want to be a manager. I want to run this place. There was like 10 people. And they eventually let me take over, but it was like right before 9/11. And right before 9/11, most people are too young to know 9/11, but we did a lot of like manufacturing and, recruiting engineering and it all stopped. And so they're like, they just had me start right before it. And so the company wasn't growing because everything was stopped. And they're like, why isn't the company growing? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is, you know what I mean? Like, you got to stick with it for a while. Yeah. So anyway, they had some bad culture and some issues. And even though I didn't know that much, I only had 2 years of experience. I started to, and this goes back to the question you started asking. It's like, when did you start thinking about running your own business? I had met a guy that, one of my competitors that was in 2 buildings down. His name's Ryan Newis. Great dude. We ended up being business partners for 13 years. But I went and started meeting with him and I just said, hey, why don't we meet and have lunch every so often? And we'll talk about starting our own business because he was running a company for somebody else in Minnesota from Minneapolis. It was an aviation, like recruiting business. So anyway, we started talking and one thing led to another. One of his clients asked him the same thing I did. He's like, how many people do you work with? He's like, I just have a couple other people. The guy's like, why don't you just work for yourself? So he brought me to that guy, and over 2 beers, we started my first recruiting company, or our first at the time, him and I and these other 2 guys that we ended up buying out relatively quickly. It was called Job Brokers, which is interesting. This was in January 2002, because what I really learned after hiring tens of thousands of people is like nobody really wants a job and nobody really wants a broker involved. But the name of our company was Job Brokers, and we crushed it under that, with that.
Well, they knew exactly what you were, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we... the first person I ever hired, like under my, like when I owned the business, was a lab tech for BOC Edwards, which was like a gases company for like semiconductor plants. And then we did a lot of contract to hire. And, it just started, it took a little while to take off. It's not like one of those things. When I look back, it's like, oh yeah, we grew to 50 million, in 5 years. But I remember the first year was like, tough for sure. You know what I mean? Like, I think the investors, we had 2 investors who we ended up buying out, but they ran another business, an ACH processing business, and they were in we had the office space. Yeah. They'd like make fun of us and shit because like we were just, trying to get this business off the ground. But when I got to that business, I remember my business partner, he started 2 weeks after me. I literally started, and this guy agreed to back it. He asked me how much money I need. I said, well, I need $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we started. I don't even know if that's what we needed, but I told him that.
Yeah.
And I don't think we ever even got into him for $100,000. But I literally started with a phone book and had to like name the company.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. We named it something else, but I didn't check to see if that name was taken. So we started doing all like the branding, and then we found out that name was taken. So I had to go to him right away and be like, shit, I got to change the name. Yeah. So it ended up being Job Brokers. I can't remember what the first name was.
Yeah.
But we ran with that. That was a fun ride for sure.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you get into, building your company, naming your company, coming up with the structure behind it, and there's a lot that goes into the way you present yourself, right? Picking those names is a big, big deal, right? So when people start to get in and they start to build that logo out, a lot of people don't go to uspto.gov and check out, is this thing, registered for somebody else or not?
Well, what's so funny about this? So this is coming back to me. So I knew the process, but so I remember I looked up the name, whatever it was before the Job Broker's name. And I looked it up, and they said, I picked it on the Arizona site, and they said, hey, you can either do one of two things. You can come down here today and register it for $10, or you can put it in the mail and it'll come here for 2 days. And I'm thinking, that name hasn't been taken. Again, I don't remember it, but it hasn't been taken in all this time. Nobody's going to fucking walk in there in the next 2 days. And this dude walked in there. And I think it was Employment Brokers. That's what it was. Jeff, the employment broker, walked in there, and that day that I decided to mail it, then walk down there. So anyway, we had to. That's what it was. We had to pivot from Employment Brokers to Job Brokers. But the logo we did like, it was like these two dudes. They looked really gay with their arms connected, but it said "linking people with opportunity." That was our tagline to start. But we did a lot of that. Yeah,
that's cool, man. And there's a lot of people out there who just don't know about a lot of that stuff. When you start to build that out, do your research. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of stuff locked out of the way. It's going to take a long time to get your name right. So, that's a frustrating part, especially as a creative who wants to put the thumb stamp or the fingerprint on something.
Yeah.
Man, you got so many really good ideas that just can't latch on because somebody got to them before you did.
Yeah. It's funny though. Job Brokers ended up, it was the appropriate name for that at the time.
Yeah.
And we ended up doing really well.
Sounds like it did well. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, it kind of was like the natural thing. It was basically this one other guy and I. He was more of the recruiter. I was more of the sales guy. And we went out, and there was a few opportunities. If we won't get fully into them, but it was hard work, but good timing. And he was more the recruiter, and so we balanced each other. And we started doing contract to hire, meaning we'd hire somebody and pay him, call it $15 an hour, and charge $30. And then they would go like on these contracts indefinitely. And I remember at one point we just started working, and we did everything. Obviously, we answered the front line. He recruited. We both like reached out. If we had a lot of work, we both recruited. We need more sales. I go out and get more sales. And I remember one day, relatively early on, I'm like, hey, so how much are we billing a week now? And I remember we were billing $100,000 a week. And we're like, maybe we should hire some people. We were absolutely just crushing it. We were making a shit ton of money, but we just kept going until like we had, this billing was so high. We were just paying the hundreds of people and making a shit ton of money. And finally we decided to go out and hire people. But I remember one of the biggest breaks that we got was back then, and most people don't do this now, but cold calling, like on foot. Like that's what I would do. And so I remember going into Goodrich Aircraft Interior Products. They build like the evacuation systems for airplanes, the Airbus specifically. So I walk in there, and they, I'm this like independent guy, trying to sell staffing services. And I walk in there, it's like the HR room. It's like this little room that has one door. It's like the only door that opens to this industrial building.
Yeah.
I walk in there with my little business card and my like folder of paper and like whatever it was, flyer. And I'm like, I'm here. Can I talk to like the HR manager? We don't ever sell to HR people now, but no knock on them. But it's just for further up the chain, you got to go.
Yeah.
But back then I did. And they're like, no, we have a national agreement with Adecco and like, all the national recruiting companies. And I was like, put my tail between my legs and walk out like poopy pants. And I'm like walking out, and this lady comes running out. She's like, hey, I've got something for you. There's like one role. If you're willing to work it, I'd love you to work it. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And it was a design engineer. It was a Pro-E designer for Goodrich Aircraft Interior Products. Well, it turns out, so I didn't know this till later, we filled a role. And then I follow up. I'm like, how are things going? Do you have any more work? And she's like, actually, they want to talk to you. I'm like, what do you mean they? She says, the team wants to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in there and Goodrich, their people from their leadership team, and Airbus, people from their leadership team, are sitting around this table. And it was the A380 at the time, obviously the largest commercial plane that they had built,
Mm-hmm.
and it was stalled because they couldn't get the evacuation system. They would time it. They brought me on the inside. They would have like a plane cut in half, and they'd ring a bell, and then they'd time how fast people could get off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the design guy fixed the flaw that got the slides to open up right. And so we went in there, and they were like, "Thank you so much." And I'm the hero of something that I didn't know I was. And they said, "Since you fix this design flaw, we'll let you do all the production work. Do you staff all the production positions?" And the plan was we were only going to stick with engineers and keep it clean.
Yeah.
And so me and my partner were like, "Yeah, fuck it, we'll do it." So we got all this work, and they were super grateful. They even we had to send people to Germany to pack the bags, pack the slides and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have the right insurance. And I'm like, I don't have that type of insurance, international insurance for employees to travel around.
Uh-huh.
They took care of it. They're like, we'll pay for it. You just have to get it. They gave me money to get it. So that was a big break. So that's when it kind of started to take off. We hired hundreds of people to basically build, design, and pack, and all these Goodrich for the A380. So that was one of the really good breaks that I remember. And it just happened to be literally, it was somewhat luck. I got to say, we worked hard. I don't want to take anything away from us, but that was a pretty good break that we got.
Yep. I hear a lot of people all the time talk about their breaks, or luck or hustle. You're going to hear one of those three angles from everybody that sits in that chair. From what I've gleaned from all these conversations, that it's all those, right? You're not going to get a break if you're not hustling to get that break. You're not going to get luck if you don't have that opportunity. If you're not pushing the doors down, you're just not going to get those. And sometimes it's just good fortune just waiting to happen because you present yourself in a good manner, right? So I think the luck thing, I agree with you. Luck is real when it comes to getting your business up and off the ground. It's who you meet and how you communicate and what they connect with you on at any situation. And do you deliver? Did you go over and beyond? And do they see that in you? And can they hope that you repeat that same thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think the luck thing is more about you just kind of pushing through, you're a humble guy just in general, and I really, I hope a lot of people out here understand this and hear this, but you're one of the nicest, most giving, humble people that I've ever been around that's done as well as you've done. And I'm super thankful to have you as a friend, but, I don't think that you're spinning that as it was a lucky situation, but there's a little more to that, I think.
Yeah, I think what that hits for me is, and it's kind of bringing back the memory. I remember when we started the business, times were tough, and I remember I'd work out at the time, probably not as committed as I probably am now, which we can get into, but I remember thinking I was at the gym. I was at LA Fitness, and the investors were kind of giving us shit. We're like, what's going on? The business is stalling out. And I remember thinking at the time I didn't have kids, wasn't married. I'm like, I should probably be at the office, grinding.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't. I was working out. And hindsight 2020, I'm glad. I think if I would have chosen to go to the office during those times when I was thinking that, and not focus on staying healthy and in shape, physically in shape, I don't know if I would have been able to push through it like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, it's I'd agree. It's the right balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a critical decision and something that I am super passionate about in my business and all my teams and employees. When I was younger, I used to be a little bit more reserved about asking people about how they are and helping them get in better shape.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I get a little bit more old and savvy, I kind of I don't really feel that bad. I think when I was younger, I'd be like, hey, I don't want that's none of my business.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm think it's all my business.
Just conversation.
How are you doing? We do some pretty, it's nothing too crazy most people do, but provide a lot of benefits and help and do, stuff that, we'll talk about how people eat, how their diet and fitness is every week on a scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
They just self-rate every week at, in the office. So that is just something that I remember, to your point about how you push through. I mean, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people, you can't take care of customers, it's all the same thing. I know everybody's heard it before, but back when I think about pushing through and getting lucky, it was because I was able to push through because I think I was physically and mentally like strong enough to push through it.
Mm-hmm. When you've gone through all of these ups and downs to your companies, have you always had a partner?
At the beginning, I had a partner, and it's funny. I love that we're getting into this because I'm in EO and YPO, and I always joke around that that in these peer groups, like when you're in these confidential peer groups and you're sharing like business stuff, you either always complain that you have a partner that you don't get along with, or you don't have partners that you can get along with. And so there's pros and cons to both. So I had a partner for one partner that we ended up buying the other guys out relatively early. And then we had him for 13 years. And then we started the company I run now. It's called Y Scouts. And just because I was kind of itching to do something new, I was kind of getting, I don't know, the way recruiting was being done, it was pretty repetitive. We were making a lot of money doing it, but I just kind of wanted to do something different. And so he ended up buying me out of 3 businesses, 3 different companies at that time. And then I took it or maintained Y Scouts because it wasn't making money back then. But I have to say, it was good. I was lucky to choose a partner that was kind of the opposite of me. He was more of an executor, like an operator. And I was more of a biz dev sales guy, like lead the charge, like type of mentality. Not that he couldn't do that, but that wasn't his gift. He now runs some companies on his own that he bought me out of. But in 2015, about 2010, 11, that's when I started to like think about it and wanted to do something different. I got kind of bored. And I kind of just felt like we were doing, I won't get into the intricacies of it, but we're doing contract to hire. You're basically hiring people and they're working on a contract and then you bring it on to hire. But in some companies, especially some bigger ones, I felt like I was getting to the point where I was smart enough to know that we were targeting companies that had a lot of turnover that would just contract through us. And basically what that meant was, and it took me a while to figure this out. I mean, once I became an entrepreneur and made a ton of money doing it, it took me a few years to figure out how like I was actually not helping solve the most, like the problems, like above the problems. Meaning like usually it was just leadership. They didn't have the right leadership. So they outsourced all their hiring because they didn't know how to hire and they, weren't paying enough. They weren't like leading people enough. And so once I got sick of doing that and started to feel like I was actually perpetuating the problem, that's when I kind of lost my love for it and wanted to figure out a better hiring process, which is kind of what we do at Y Scout. So now all I do is retained executive search. But in 2010, 11, that's when I kind of decided my heart was out of it. It took me a couple of years to get him to take over buy the businesses. But officially 2015, I sold those 3 companies to him, which created a little bit of a runway for me, which was like actually right when I met you. Yeah. So when I went to Gumball, I had I think I was just in the process of finalizing the sale. So I kind of knew I was going to get paid, which is, you get a little different attitude and you have some money in the bank, like guaranteed. And so that started in 2015. And then the whole, we had Y Scouts had already started in 2012. I was committed to changing kind of the way hiring was done, and we still do. We're a purpose-based leadership search firm, and our purpose is to transform how people and companies connect work that matters. So what that means to us, anybody that joins us, is like we just do hiring a different way. It's pretty badass. It's like everything's web-based, everything's easy for our clients. Like, it just feels better. Like we send videos of our interviews and like edited video, stuff like that you guys would appreciate here as, creatives. And we still do, to this day. We're building a piece of software that's helping us actually execute our process that's really unique in itself. It's called Scout Path. It's kind of the placeholder name, but it's an internal piece of software that we are basically proving out that's allowing us to do more with like less people. And as long as we can prove that out, in my opinion, then we license it and then we sell it to other people and we continue to use it the way we want. So, and then we have our first product that's like, it's a role visioning product that helps people define roles. It's like an interactive thing. I'm on video and I talk to people and they just talk to it and then it spits out this digitized we call opportunity profiles, but they're job descriptions. So we've been doing that. So that's been consuming my time now. But everything we do now is retained C-level stuff. So it's a lot more fun because you're solving big time problems. And back then, kind of back full circle, I don't really feel like I was solving problems like I get to now.
Yeah, you were just filling needs at the point, and now you're trying to you're really trying to holistically solve what the issue is that's happening over there.
Yeah. I mean, there were three things I remember going through my head back in those days. Was I didn't feel like I was actually solving problems, and then we were kind of like it must have been a little bit before ACH was prevalent because the big companies they would not pay me, and I knew I was going to get paid because they were like Goodrich and like Magellan and University of Phoenix, stuff like that.
Yeah,
but they would like not pay me, and I'd eventually have to call and be like, dude, I don't have a line of credit anymore, because you go out like millions of dollars, and because you're paying the payrolls on your banking, and so I'd have to like drive down there, and they'd give me like a $1 million check or whatever to like put in the bank, and I'm like, I'm sick of like chasing these people down and like them putting me off, and like, and then the third piece, so it was not solving the problem, chasing money, the receivables, and a couple of people I got like stung and got screwed over, and when you're staffing and you don't get paid, and then if the company goes bankrupt, you're like so far back in line, like it's lost money,
right?
And you're paying their payroll, so you get like taken advantage of. So people go after and be like, hey, I want to use staffing because they don't want to pay their payroll and like get a 30. So that was the other thing. And then the third thing was we started doing manufacturing. We just started doing a lot of utility scale solar, and a lot of people started getting hurt, and they're legally my employees working at somebody else's site, and I had really good. The biggest partner that we had, biggest client we had, was really good. It was the biggest supplier for First Solar, but we had so many injuries, and they're all on mine. Like I had to start going physically, like people would be run over by forklifts, and I'd have to go down there and like look at all the carnage and like see it firsthand. So I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah,
I'm done with this. Like I'm gonna go like. So that's kind of pushed me into like saying, hey, why don't you just take this business over and I'll go do my thing.
So when you got into that, do you now at this point take a 30,000 foot view of your company? Are you in the weeds? Like what is really the day to day for you as you've gotten into Y Scouts?
Yeah, I'm super lucky. I've got a really good team. Especially, I mean, I still do a decent amount of biz dev because the problem that you're solving is usually a CEO's problem, and usually they kind of like I'm. From having a lot of conversations in YPO and other peers, especially as I grew a beard and got gray.
Yeah,
like
I feel you.
But it's really like it's their most acute pain. I think, and sometimes it's their most acute pain in their life. Like when you help somebody hire the right, president or CEO if they're on the board, or like they're a CEO and you hire them the right COO, their life's different forever in a good way. So we got to do that over and over. And so a lot of times I'm like, I'll start in the front end, with some of the bigger deals. And then, I do get to play a little bit on the creative side and building the software and doing the stuff that I'm kind of chasing after because it's interesting to me and, builds enterprise value more. But I'm still pretty in the weeds. Like, I mean, I have clients that still will reach out to me every once in a while, during a search is going on. I'd say 95% of the time, though, I'll talk to a client a little bit on the front end, and then once we start doing business, I'll talk to them only, because I want to keep in touch with them. But my team just crushes it, which is super awesome. So I'd say I get in the weeds because I still want to, but I don't really have to.
Yeah, when you fulfill needs for somebody else that's looking for a position, and they tell you I want X, Y, Z, right? Versus when you fulfill a need for somebody in your own company. Is that the same process? Is that a different process? Because I know personally that the type of people I look for is a very different niche than what a lot of people would potentially want for their companies. How do you vet out what someone's looking for? How do you vet out the lifeblood of the company and what they're looking for as far as culture goes to fill these roles?
Yeah, so this is a good question. I mean, this is why we built Y Scouts. So we do what's called an org DNA. It's in the book Hiring on Purpose. It's basically just kind of a survey of like a cross section of your team to really understand kind of like the nuances of like what makes you you. And then I believe in our theory and philosophy is that you have to define success in the role in the first 12 months. You got to get super clear on that. Like not a laundry list of stuff. You want to figure out like, what does this person ultimately need to achieve in the next 12 months in order to be successful, and concentrate that down to like 3 success outcomes and the key responsibilities that correspond to those. And they're always kind of action based. So they can't like, you can't gamify your resume really with them. And then the second thing, so understanding so that's what we do to understand the culture, and then getting really clear on what the person needs to achieve. And the reason why I say that, like in that way, is most people, they write a laundry list of stuff, put everything in the kitchen sink, like everything, they think they get everything in there. But when you get everything in there, that means you can't focus on like you can't focus on the most important things. So it's more of a game on the front end to get clear on what your culture is. That's obviously non-negotiable. And then to get clear on what the position needs to achieve, and go find somebody that can do that, or has done that before. If it's a leadership role, we make sure they've done it before. That's what people pay us for. And then on the culture side, what we do, and like this is open source, like you can do it, is we on the front end with candidates, we take everybody through a covert process. Like even if they kind of know who the company is, we don't ever focus on the company. We focus on them. The first interview is like, what do you most care about? What are you good at? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Everything's open-ended on that first phone conversation. You only use about 30 minutes, but it feels different because it's not like, what can you do for me? Because as soon as you start saying that, in my opinion, they know what you need them to do. They just gamify it and tell you everything you need to know. And now it's a dance. And like people are really good at doing that. So it's one thing that we're passionate about is we, let people go through a discovery process. Now the second interview, once they're aligned and we say, hey, this person's aligned to the culture, and like we feel like they'd fit in with the team and they get it. They, get shit done the same way. Culture is purpose and values. But at the end of the day, it's like, how do we get shit done around here? That's what your culture is. So once you got that down, once we take people through that, then if they're aligned, then we take them through a deep dive interview, like that's behavioral based, to make sure that they can do those, achieve the success outcomes, the key responsibilities. The nuance in it is, like if I were you, and I've got people that do this, that after they read the book, is they just use somebody in their company with a Gmail address. And when they reach out to them, we don't ever post jobs. Again, some people have to because they don't have the time to reach out. But I would argue posting a job is counterintuitive. If that job's that important and you're going to post it and you're going to let all these people rewrite their resume, and like now you're digging through a bunch of people that have gamified it, like now you're just trying to untangle a bunch of bullshit. Like who's bullshitting you more than the other person?
Right.
So to eliminate that, you don't really focus on the company and the role. What you need to focus on is, here's what here are the things that we want you to do. Here's the type of culture we are. In a perfect world, you don't even tell them the name of the company or the role. And then you tell people, I mean, we're a third party, so we can tell people we work for Y Scouts and we're working on the behalf of a client. But you can do it with a Gmail address and take people through that discovery process. In that 30-minute call, you would learn everything about them by just asking them, like, what do you most care about? Like, what are you most proud of that you've achieved? Like, how do you overcome, like, a hard time? What's the hardest thing that you've overcome in the last year? You ask questions like that. What's the most important thing in your life right now? They tell you everything that you'd want to know. And the reason why they do is when people don't know why you're asking a question, which if they don't know the exact role in the company, they just default to telling you the truth. So we just leverage that kind of theory at the highest level. We reach out to people and we let them know that we're retaining an exclusive by a company that cares so much about the complete alignment around culture and competencies that we want to take them through a discovery process before we get into the details of the role to save them time. And so they're like, shit. I mean, these are people that get reached out to all the time, but when we reach out to them that way, they respond because most people don't reach out to them that way. So like we've been sharing this when we first started doing this. I'm like, dude, this is like, we don't want anybody to know about this.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, fuck this. It's all how you execute it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you got to reach out to a lot of people. You got to go figure out, like, it's a lot of work to research and find these people, but the payoff is real because you get people that are highly aligned, and then you don't get the people that are bullshitters that are going to come in and just, kind of fuck everything up.
Yeah. Are you filling all these out with surveys? Are you filling all these out with live interviews? Like, and even as you do that, are you splitting this between upper management, middle management? Because, the upper management is not going to have the same view as middle management is unless it's cascaded through very well,
Yeah. So, we do use survey tools. With the C-level roles, though, everything's high touch. Like we get in and somebody takes them through that discovery process. But on the client side, the way they define success, it's a what we call role visioning exercise. That's what I now do because now we have AI enhanced stuff, which changed everything. Like we literally used to take surveys from people.
Yeah.
And then we used to have people, it wasn't me because I'm a shitty writer, but we used to have people take all this input from like 4 or 5 different people defining success in the role and then call it from like 20 people for a 100-person company around culture. And then we'd triangulate it all. And then we'd get in a strategy session and show them like, here's the way you're unique. Well, now we've trained like AI tools to like do that instantly. So now we just take, even from the first sales call when I start talking to somebody, if I'm recording it, which I try to always, the transcript is gold.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it writes stuff better than I ever will.
Yeah.
So now we're building it like that. But to answer your question, it's a combo of things. It's like we'll take transcripts from interviews and like they go into the system and like that's what creates like the candidate profile. But that's exactly what we're building. We're building almost like a self-serve model for people so they can do retained search or search like us at all levels. But I think from a culture standpoint, the org DNA, it should be the same, throughout the organization. If it isn't, then that's, something that you got to sort out. If leadership views work a different way than, the person at the front lines. And like, that's the gap that you got to kind of fix. I always think about, if it's too hard for people to wrap their head around identifying and defining what their culture is, you at least got to try to sit back and be like, who are we today? Whether we like it or not, what do we like today? Do we like loaf into the office and, nobody has fun, whatever it is. I'm just kind of making it up. And then that's who we are today. Who do we want to be?
Yeah.
And then as long as you can figure out who you want to be, and if that's who you truly want to be, then go hire people that like, they want that same thing.
Personify that, yeah.
So I think it's, if you can't go through like a structured process like we provide and, that we talk about in Hiring on Purpose, it's really about figuring out who you really are and who you want to be. And if you want to be that, there's 2 ways to change a culture. It's by brute force, by reinforcing positive behavior or firing people for fucking up. And the other way to change it is by hiring people that are like and want things that you want to be like.
Yeah.
And so I'd argue that the second way is a lot faster and easier. You do both, but the second way is a lot, faster and easier. You hire the types of people, especially when it comes to leaders. You start bringing in a leader that is the type of leader you want to be, and that the company starts rolling that that direction really, really quickly.
Right. It's the type of people that you're bringing in. Those people are, like you say, personifying your business at a certain level. You can really change the direction of your company, right? If you're a small company, you bring in somebody who's got a lot of skins on the wall. They got they're really good at leadership, organization. They can really, like a cigarette boat, turn you pretty quickly, right? Yeah. When you get a little higher up, I noticed that a lot of bigger companies start to lose a lot of culture, right? They all start to become a lot more generic. They don't have that same uniqueness and that same feel that a lot of the under a certain size company has. Is there a bullseye demographic that you're looking for your company to say, hey, we really resonate with crafting the type of person that fits with a specific culture? Or are we everything to everybody? If you got this culture, we can hit it. If you just want generic, we got that too.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. The process that we've put together will work under any circumstance, but the best, we like to have fun and we like to do things like to the nth degree and do it really right. And doing it that way is like we have to have a culture that's somewhat similar to theirs, like our team, kind of how we get stuff done. And I'd say for the most part, closely held companies, or at least somebody that has the founder involved. Now, closely held companies has changed a lot. Like it can be private equity can be involved now. 15 years ago, with private equity involved, nobody cared about shit. That was my opinion. Like people can argue that. Now there's a lot of private equity companies, they, focus in purpose-based, investments. And so it's kind of changed and their horizons are longer. But I would say as a kind of rule of thumb, usually when the founder's involved and they're still pushing, and not to say that somebody new can't come in and change the culture, but when the founder's involved, closely held, it can be small or big. Typically, if they're holding down the culture that they started and everybody understands why they started the company and they're still talking about why they started the company and they're crystal clear on that and they have a value system that's maybe evolved. Those are usually the more fun companies to work with. Definitely companies that care about developing people it has to be. We got in a place one time, this is funny you bring this up. When we started, we only wanted to work with purpose-driven companies. And then after a while of doing that, I'm like, who the fuck are we to tell people they're purpose-driven or not? That's like me saying you're more better Christian than like him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got through that and I was like, wait a minute, we kind of lost our way here. We should be okay with helping those people because they get it. They're like, oh yeah, you're singing our language. But you got to be okay with the people that want to get there, but they don't know how. And so once we started getting good with that, we're like, hey, and that comes down to like the person that you're working with. Like who's the leader that you're going to actually be working with? Like who's the CEO of the company? I always tell like anybody, especially young kids, when they ask what's most important about choosing my first job or my next job. And I'd say if you believe in what the company sells and the leader that you're reporting to is somebody that like you respect, then those are the things that matter the most. And then I think if I dumb it all the way down, that's kind of what we think when we do business with somebody is like, do they have those two things? And if they do, even if they're not super purpose driven or, you know, about culture, we can help them get there.
Somebody asked me the other day, who's the bullseye that you're looking at to do business with? I said two things. One, there were some KPIs that I talked about. You know, a company that, you know, $45 million a year, at least company, you know, so they at least have enough money to put into marketing to understand that, hey, I've gotten myself to this level and I at least need X to get me to here, right? And the other thing is people that fit with me, right? Like I need people who are okay with someone being a disruptor. I don't want to be generic. I don't want to do something like someone else did. If everyone's going left, I want to go right. And I want people that are okay with that approach. Right. And you said pairing up with someone who's, you know, like-minded, you know, that really hits me. You know, when you start to think about, you know, how you start to do business, how do you choose somebody or how do you understand? Are there things in the beginning that you say, are there keywords that you flag in on, or are there, much like if I'm doing an interview with someone and someone uses the word passion, that's a flag for me. Right.
Yeah.
If they use the word passion, I know that's something I can't supply for you. I can teach you how to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I can't give you passion to do your job. Right.
Right.
What are the key words you look for when you start to find those companies that you're pairing up with, that you say, that guy fits with me, that company fits with me? Or is it let me reach out to everybody and then we sort it out a little bit later?
No, I think the best way to answer that for us is we have a leadership model for hiring. That's our IP, like that we had a neuroscientist put together. But I think it has to be, there's 3 elevated behaviors that we look for. And these became our values, by the way. So that's what that, you know, that kind of, it happened that way for a reason. But somebody's a relentless learner. Like they have an attitude like they're not a know-it-all, but they're confident.
Thirsty.
Like it's about, confident but not cocky, that they want to develop other people. Like they care about leadership, they care about developing others, and they drive results. And the drive results piece will, like, that's where you get the bullshit, like, out of it. You know, the people that just have passion and kind of like people and kind of like to learn. But like, if they don't know how to like drive results, then like they're out. So to us, it's, you know, that's something that we've focused on for probably 10 years now. It's our leadership model. It's open source. We actually have a guy writing a white paper on it to give him, like, to update it. But I'd say those 3 things. I mean, those are our values, and that's what we believe. We also we added 2 more values around, and again, this is you know, aligns with me too, about personal health and well-being is one of ours. Like we recognize people that all the time, because you can have those other things, and if you don't do that, you know, the other things don't matter. You can't take care of other people unless you take care of yourself. And then in our business, because we're helping people at the most senior level, we call it consultative sincerity. And that's basically telling somebody the truth. Like, you know, sometimes we have clients, they're like A-type CEOs. We got to tell them the truth. We got to tell them like this isn't the right person you should hire. Like they fall in love with some people. And sometimes we got to be like, no, you're missing it. And so we've done a lot better at that. That's a newer value for us. But I think those 5 things, if other people care about those things, then, you know, they're probably aligned to us. You know, I think there's also an element of like having fun and like, you know, doing all this stuff, how we, you know, kind of get connected in the first place.
Right.
Like, I want to know that stuff too. I mean, one of the first questions I always ask a client or candidates is like, hey, what do you like to do outside the office?
Yeah.
Because like, we're just all fucking walking each other home to die one day. Like, you know what I mean? I want to know, like, what do you do for fun?
Yes.
And then if we can at least, even if it's something totally different I don't do, but I can see how they light up when they do it, then I'm like interested. I'm like, oh yeah, they definitely have something outside of here that's going to keep them happy, which is going to be important.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's important that they have something that revolves around what they do for a living at some point as a hobby, or do you think division is the best way to go?
No, I mean, I don't really subscribe to one. I mean, I you hear people talk about like work-life integration and work-life balance. I'm kind of one of those guys too, where as long as somebody can do their job well, like maybe if they have something that like, it correlates to outside the office, that's cool. If it's something totally different, like painting and being an incredible artist, I have a ton of respect for that too. You know what I mean? Like just as long as they're developing themselves. Like a question that I love to learn for me is like, I like to ask people like, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Those are the people I want. You know what I mean? Like, I've met you screaming by guys and on a racetrack in a Hellcat. Like, I'm like, I knew this guy is like, he's signed up, he's on the program. But no, that's like that. So that's a relentless learning thing. Is I was like, I want people that are pushing outside and want to achieve stuff. I got to be honest. I'm also biased towards people that like physically take care of themselves, probably more so than I should be. But for me, it's the safety. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, if somebody, I have a lot of respect and empathy for people that have health problems. Don't get me wrong. But somebody's not helping themselves, like, I can't really change them if they're going to, if they have an unhealthy lifestyle.
You think that unhealthy lifestyle bleeds into an unhealthy work environment? You think they're bringing the trash they put into their body is the same trash they bring into a business?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I would say that. I mean, like, if somebody's smoking cigarettes and, they're in terrible shape, that's their choice, but they're probably not going to work well with me because I'm going to like tell them that, they should like not do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just like, I feel like that's what I'm saying. As I've matured, I'm not going to bullshit people and be like, oh, you're totally fine. Like you're coughing up a lung and, but
as somebody coughs in the background.
But, I don't know. I mean, I think you kind of get it. I think you have to be relatable. Like I said, I think as I get older, we talked about time is your greatest resource. And, you gotta respect people for, stuff they do outside the office and you want to see them do that well too.
Yeah. I think there's a healthy balance there that I've seen with you that I totally respect. It's the family environment that you hold on so closely to. Tons of respect for that, man. It's really cool to see people be successful and then hold that on a tier above everything else, right? Which I see you guys do that. Like it's a really neat thing to see from the outside, and it's one thing that I want to hold on to. I try to surround myself with people who have that in their life. Was it always that way?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the family. I think you know it well. I grew up in a family that basically, came and watched us play every single sporting event, you know what I mean? And traveled, and parents that did anything to allow us to play sports and loved watching us like compete. And, me and my brother and, sisters when they were younger, humbly, we were, good at it. So it was fun. But when you have a supportive family that like coaches or like is involved and shows up for you, I mean, you get that kind of ingrained. I mean, when my son and even stepkids were younger, did a lot of coaching and like, that was my way of like giving them the same thing I had, which I think turns right into the family thing is like you start, at some point you do stuff for your kids because somebody did that for you, you know what I mean? And you're trying to provide them, a connection, and like I said, the most important thing is, supporting your family. And at the end of the day, I don't know why it always comes back to me, but like we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of, we've been friends for quite some time, and the social media stuff that I see, unless it's on LinkedIn, I don't see you talk about your business. If it's on social media channel like Instagram or something, it's family, 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 family. And I love that, it's a perspective that, a lot of people say, hey, look, I'm doing this for you, and use that as an excuse to go bury themselves in their business. But it sounds like, you were conditioned at an early age. When you start to surround yourself like the friends that we met on Gumball with you guys, 3 great couples, and I love them all. I mean, it made friends for a long time, right, with all of them. But you guys were all kind of nested up that way, So you just surround yourself with people that way, or is it easier? Is it safer? Like where are we at there?
It's funny when I think about it. I do have a lot of really good friends. It feels like I don't get enough time with them. As you get older, you kind of, because time becomes a little bit more tricky. I think I was just lucky to have good friends. I think when you're genuine with people and you truly have their backs, and you're an ear for them to kind of bend. Like even Dave and Mike and the Biancos and the Sellers. I mean, they coincidentally, and I believe in coincidences, but it just so happens that we all live in Coeur d'Alene and in Scottsdale. Now, the funny part is like Mike, I just saw him yesterday. I'd consider him a very close friend. But I don't talk to him a shit ton in the winter for some reason, but in the summer I see him almost every day. But I think, to your point, I think I just have found a lot of like-minded friends that are in the same situation, that are, working their ass off, and their family is the center, and, everything we do and is the family's involved. And, we kind of look at that first.
And the wives all get along?
The wives all get along. Yeah.
That's a hard thing to find. I've got a core group of about 4 or 5 people, and all of the guys and the wives get along really, really well. And I've always said, man, like, let's hold on to this. Like, let's not let this go at all. It's so difficult to find that, right?
It is. Yeah. I mean, I think as you get older, it's kind of harder. Everybody, kind of wants to do stuff their own way. Even myself, I'd say, you just get a little bit more particular, and you enjoy kind of your own space. I'm a super social person though, so I love socializing. But yeah, we're lucky that everybody kind of gets along, is in the same place. I mean, I'm almost turning 50. I'm starting to realize, at least with like Mike and Dave, I used to be the youngest. I felt like I was always the youngest guy in the room. Now I'm realizing, like, even in this room, I'm the oldest guy.
The oldest one in this room. Yeah. I want to put you up there because I'm so far back.
But yeah, no, it's I think it's important. I think it just comes from having a good family, good parents that kind of taught me how to be a father and mother figure. And so that's what we continue to do as parents. I know you're the same way.
No, 100%. That's everything to me. Like, the only reason I do anything that I'm doing is because it's for them, right? But I've got to make sure that I don't get the for them ahead of being with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think the thing I think about a lot and talk about a lot with super successful people is most people I know have it better than their parents had it. And our kids, we'll act like we're the same, have it better than we had it. But I think our kids cross the line.
Yeah.
That like they see that we have made it so good for them that they don't have to, they're not going to have to work as hard if they don't want to. And I think that's a scary thing to think about. I talk about this a lot with people, and I don't want that to be, because you work your ass off to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
I kind of want, you want your kids to go through the same thing. I want my kids to go through that same thing. Yeah. And I don't know if they will. Hopefully it'll be something different, but they're not going to have to invent themselves. And you know what I mean? Because you're kind of setting the bar pretty high. So that's one of the things that concerns me a little bit. I'm learning. I was thinking about it, like if I could, write a blog and really narrow down and like get to know a certain group of people, it'd probably be people that think about that same issue. Like, what do you do with, kids that you're paying for their college? Like, how do you make sure that they're going to get out and work as hard as you did?
Yeah, 100%.
So I don't know. It's just something that like, maybe I'm not perfect on, is like, maybe I have given things up a little too easy and made it too easy for them. And that's more my fault than it is their fault.
But I talk about this with my kids specifically, and my wife, and have these conversations all the time. But my kids literally told me the other day, Dad, I just don't want to work as hard as you work, right? Like, we see it. We know that you are 24/7 doing stuff between your own company, between fixing things at the house, because I want to fix everything myself, right? I want to learn how to do it. I want to get something out of it. I just want to get better at it. I want to understand what someone else who's doing that for me, what they're doing. And then my painting stuff, like I'm in it nonstop. And so it's a full day every day, right? But there's a family part in there too that you got to balance. And they're just like, sometimes we just want to play some video games. And I'm like, I get that. But at the age they're at right now, I've felt a little bit confused with my own parenting at points. Yeah. Like wondering, did I do a good service for them by giving them the things that I've given them? Or am I doing them a disservice by giving them things that I'm giving them? But I don't know that they've gotten old enough to really prove me right or wrong.
Yeah. I was thinking about this today, and I think about it a lot, is I think one of my miswirings is I'm always in a hurry. Mm-hmm. But I also know that humbly, that's what has got me to where, I kind of have surplus of certain things because I'm always in a hurry. But like sometimes that doesn't really work with everybody. I mean, I wouldn't recommend, when you think about it, if, I know people talk about this all the time. If somebody asked me, hey, do you recommend being an entrepreneur? I'd be like, fuck, man, if you're ready for it, mm-hmm. but like it doesn't come easy and you're going to work your ass off and you're probably going to damage relationships and you're probably going to brush people the wrong way and your kids are probably going to wonder why you're always in a hurry and you're not going to so there's a part of me like I'm always in a hurry still and I can't figure out why. Mm-hmm. But I know that that's how I got ahead. And so mm-hmm. figuring out and, and there's, a lot of things that I think everybody does, but, working out and breathing and just, stuff like ground you, mm-hmm. super important. But as I get older, I still have to remind myself, like sometimes you just don't want to be in a hurry. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like even when I'm on vacation, I'm like, it's like trying to figure out like what we're going to do next. Like yeah. I don't know why. Yeah. But, so that's a tough thing is like, I'm in a hurry. There is a benefit to it, but I feel like I do damage some relationships because I'm in a hurry and, people like they take it the wrong way.
Yeah. Do you feel like, do you dislike when someone is not organized in vacation time? Do you dislike it when people aren't feeling the need to feel the same hurry that you're feeling at points?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I totally respect. I mean, especially my wife's really good about not being in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean that in like a loving way. Like
I love you, baby.
You know what I mean?
I love
yeah.
you.
She points out when basically, she's like, our 6-year-old, like, she just asked you, like, look at something and you just like glance at it. You kept moving. I'm like, I don't realize I do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad she points it out. But, those are the things where you're like, damn, like, it's not worth that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that. Man, she's going to be grown and gone. Like, I don't need to be in a hurry that bad. Yeah. So it is a dance. It's a balance that I'm trying to figure out. But I know that all the guys, back to like the people that I get along with best, they all are dealing with the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so hanging out and just not being in a hurry every once in a while and having a drink with them and having a good time with them, that makes it all worth it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like the reset button.
Yep. I want to lock in when it's time to lock in. And I want to shut it off when it's time to shut it off, right? But I like shutting it off with like-minded people because I realize they're doing that at the same time. And we can truly like not be game during that time. I don't want to talk business during that time. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to shut it down like completely. Like if we go play golf and hang out and do whatever, it's like, I'm not going to be like, hey man, let me tell you about the podcast or blah, blah, blah. Whatever. It's like, I don't want to do that. I just want to be like, so how was the day? What movies y'all seen lately? Like, what do you do besides this? Like, let's go play some golf. Let's go have a few drinks. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that really bond you as a person, not the superficial conversations or turning to work because I have nothing else to say. Like, give me the meat. You know what I mean?
It's funny. This conversation, so we've been living in that summer. We go up to Idaho and everybody kind of goes up there. It's beautiful. And like, you pretty much are outdoors and playing golf, pickleball, and like running around and very active on the lake, surfing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people up there. Like almost everybody up there, like they're very successful at something. I almost know, like I've been there for 7 years. I'm barely starting to learn what people actually do because nobody fucking cares. They're like, all right, You're here.
Yes.
We're all here. And the funny thing is like, I don't know what most people do. And some people are like, besides like the professional athletes, because I see them on TV.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of people, I don't know what they do. And one side of me doesn't care because I've gone 6 years with like a great relationship where like we play what you do. I see you on the golf course every day. That's what you do. You play golf late in the in the evening like I do. That's how I know you. I don't really need to know that you run a hedge fund in Philly like the rest of the year. But it's funny, and that's like the summer life and the summer friends. And I love summer friends because they don't mind if you don't talk to them all winter.
Yep.
And then when you see them, they're exactly the same as you left them. That's one of my pet peeves in friendships is people that give you a hard time for not reaching out.
Yeah.
Especially when you've been busy and they're like, why haven't you reached out? Like, we haven't talked in how long? And now we want to talk about why I haven't reached out to you.
This is the first thing you bring me is this.
Like you're stressing me out and like, telling me I'm too much in a hurry and I haven't been able to give you a call. Like we're here now. Let's kick it.
This is my shutdown time. Let's do it. This is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when you get into those points too, where like you're surrounding yourself with people of like-minded who have done something like that. Like you said, you go to Idaho and hang out with those guys. If those guys hadn't done something and hadn't been successful, they wouldn't be here. There's no need to ask, right? There's no need to get into that. We've all done something to get to this point. We don't need to sort it out now that we're here, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
100%. So while you're in Scottsdale. I know we've gone to things like the Phoenix Open and hung out and done that. How many times have you done that now?
Man, I started going to the Phoenix Open when I was, probably 10 years old. My stepdad had a corporate pass. It's totally different then and now. I mean, I used to walk the whole course. I've probably been to the Phoenix Open probably 25 years.
Wow. Every year?
I don't go every year now because I've done it so many times. And now, it's kind of like if you live in Vegas and you go to the Strip, every night. It's kind of like that. So it's like maybe in every other year, and usually I pick one day and one night versus when I was younger, we go for 3 or 4 nights. All my friends are Thunderbirds. We kicked it pretty hard. But Phoenix is the Phoenix Open. It's an incredible event.
Yeah.
It's the greatest boondoggle of all time.
Yeah. I remember this is after I came back from meeting you guys on Gumball, and I saw Mike. He and I were following each other on social media, and I look up and looks like he's working on a tent or something at the Waste Management Open. And I was like, dude, are you going to the Waste Management Open? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, it's cool, man. I always thought that was like a bucket list, a really cool deal. It's like, congrats. And I said, what are you doing working on the tent? Is that part of your business or something? He's like, man, I'm one of the people that put this on. I was like, get out of here. I mean, it's like, known him that amount of time and I had no idea, and he's like, you and your wife, y'all come down here and y'all hang out. And man, brought us down, gave us the best experience down there on the 16th.
Yeah.
And they're sweet. And it's an experience, man. It is one of the best. We went 3 or 4 years in a row, and I don't think we've been in 3 or 4 years, but it's an amazing time to be able to see that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is an incredible event for sure.
A ton of people go to that. And then you and I, like I said, have been on Gumball, which I did that for 7 years, which was a pretty great run, and super thankful that I got to go on that. And you did it twice?
I did it twice, yeah. 2015 and 16. Yeah, it was, I was kind of, coming here was reminding me of some of the Gumball times. Winning the Spirit of the Gumball in 2015. I mean, it was that hole, as you know, because you've done it 7 times.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a good experience, through and through. Yeah. I don't think people understand. While fun, I mean, I think anything that has an element of being dangerous also makes it a little bit more fun too.
Yeah.
And so that's that. There are a lot of really funny things that I remember about Gumball for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you stay connected with a lot of guys that you met on that?
Yeah, I'd say I stay connected. Probably not as well as some people do.
Mm-hmm.
But I still I probably have 20 of the guys like that I keep in touch with, you, through social media and just text every once in a while, checking in and kind of follow along. But I mean, it's awesome to see. I think I want to do it again. My wife does not. She's not interested in doing it again. And I I think now at this point it's about doing it maybe with my older kids.
Oh, that's cool.
You know what I mean? I'll take them and do it. But yeah, I mean, we had such amazing times. I on Gumball. The Spirit of the Gumball, but that year that we won Spirit of the Gumball, that whole ride, I mean, like there were certain things that happened that were just like, I mean, you could never duplicate like what had happened. I mean, pulling out of Stockholm, off the grid.
That was insane.
Yeah, and then
how deep were those crowds all the way around that thing?
It was crazy. And then, do you remember we pulled out of Stockholm? We have like a briefing with the Swedish police, and they're like, "Listen, like don't drink and drive, and don't don't speed too much. You're still liable for it once you get out of here." Well, right away we get pulled over and get breathalyzed, and I'm like, "Shit, I was drinking a shit ton last night, so I'm already like on edge, like I might fail this breathalyzer, like right out of the gate, and go to jail." Well, I passed that, and then we start driving, and Pritchard and those guys are hanging out the window. I was just telling these guys, and they're filming me while I was like speeding up. I was in a 775 horsepower 911 turbo. It's like all modified, and this thing was so fast, it was a stick. So I'm speeding up and slowing down, and as I'm speeding up, I'm like looking at Pritchard at the camera, and all of a sudden I turn, and there's like a column binder, like one of those big tractors pulls out in the road. Dude, it was probably, I don't know, maybe a couple 100 yards at most. I'm going like 150. So they're next to me, and I'm stopping, and I don't want to hit them. I see a Bentley behind me slam its brakes on, and I'm like, oh shit. So now I got that coming at me too. And I just got locked in, and the car was kind of sliding, but you're braking as fast as you can with the engine. And like we missed this thing by like a foot. All the bags came up, broke the cup holder. And we literally, I thought we hit it. Yeah. I mean, like we were that close to it by the time we like kind of swerved over. And somehow we got out of it and got the bags out of our lap. I drove off and I grabbed her on his hand. I'm like, "Are you okay?" Her palm was fucking sweating. It was like shooting water out of it. Like I've never seen anything like it. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "No, I'm not okay." I wasn't either. I'm like, shit. And then that was like 3 hours in. I'm like, we're only like 100 miles in. We got to go 2,900 more miles of that. So, and then I think what capped that trip off, obviously, was winning the Spirit of the Gumball. But along the way, we got passed by John Olson in his car. And he passed me. I think there was three of us, and we were like fighter jet pilots flying. And he puts he had cop lights, like fake cop lights. So I pull over because I thought it was a cop. But as soon as I saw it was him, we're chasing this fucking guy down. Yeah. So that's when we chased him down for we were just like boys in a car that were like, we would have rather died than have to like not chase him down. Yeah. So we chased him down, but we got flagged by cops and ended up getting a 5,000 euro speeding ticket. They charged our credit cards right out of their trunk and sent us on their way. But it was good times.
We got hit with one of those going through Germany. And Germany just, they gave us the old trick where 10 of y'all will follow us. Don't lose us, and don't pass us. Right.
Yeah. I remember that.
And then they pulled us through the speeding trap, and they sped up to get our numbers up when we went through the speeding trap. And then they pulled the entire highway over. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the guys are sitting there like writing tickets for everybody. Well, we didn't have that cash on us, so he ran our cards. As soon as I got out of Germany, I was like, "Hey, that credit card that just went through there, let's cancel that bad boy." Real
Did
quick.
They cancel it?
Oh, we canceled it immediately.
I tried to do that. They didn't. My Amex said no.
Oh, yeah. Ours canceled. So we got lucky on that one.
Yeah, that was Holland. Like we were in different countries, so maybe
we were in Germany when ours was. So they were.
We had German. It's so funny. They were so intense. They clipped. I forgot to get the radar detectors off. They clipped it off, clipped the cord, and took it. I was like, "What the fuck?" I had an extra one. Yeah. And then we got pulled over. And at one point, this was one of the things that I still remember from Gumball, and it was a learning lesson. Is I went to pay one off, and he's like just kind of gave me the shake off. And I was like, kind of like figuring out like why he was shaking me off. And I was like, maybe he doesn't know how much it is. And I only had a couple $100 bills. So I only grabbed one, and I put it into my phone, and I put it into currency exchange so he could see it. And then he was like, oh, and then I gave it to him. But he didn't know how much a $100 bill was in American cash, which was like a humbling experience. You think everybody knows what a $100 bill is in cash. And then we gave it to him, and the next thing you know, we're taking pictures with him with our arms around him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was classic Gumball shit.
Yeah, that was the best. I mean, we've passed cops before that would pull us over just so they could take photos of their car.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, look, we're not gonna give you a ticket. We just wanted to look at this car a little bit, and can we get a photo? And absolute blast, man. And so, yeah, we're like, yeah, man, come on over here and, sit in it, hit the gas a couple times, and so.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was going to remember I told these guys earlier, the craziest gumball, or one of them that I remember vividly is, and I remember this is where I got to know you a lot better and got to know your personality, is when we stopped at the track at Budapest and you guys were in that Hellcat and you guys were fucking blowing by these guys and like they're fast, like, they're fast cars that they thought were so nice. And you guys are like out the window filming them as you're passing them. But so do you remember Locke from London? He totaled a Ferrari. It was like kind of starting to rain. He was like one of the first guys on track, missed the first turn, like boom, like totaled his Ferrari.
Yeah.
So he gets in our car because we have a Panamera Turbo. And the story goes, I'm driving into Romania at this point because it's Budapest to Bucharest. And Tony, I saw on the WhatsApp, he's like, he had a flat tire. And so I was in a Panamera Turbo too. So I'm like, I think I might have a spare. I'm going to help him out. So I go to pull over and Locke and his buddy, I can't remember, it was one of his buddies. They were awesome. But they had to deal with me driving crazy too. They were in the back like white knuckle. So I pull over, I'm in the trunk and I'm looking for my spare. And all of a sudden over WhatsApp, they were talking about these black M5s that were trying to run people off the road.
I remember that.
And so, one of them like followed this, like one of the gumballers like in a store and was like super creepy.
Yeah.
So we're all like, what the fuck's going on? And we're in Romania and like everything's kind of creepy. There's nobody around. And all of a sudden I'm in the back, getting the stuff out of the trunk to look at the tire. And I didn't have one, by the way. So the car M5 blows by, slams its brakes on, and then starts backing up really fast.
I remember
Locke
this.
and Brian are like, get in. So I jump back in the driver's seat, take off as fast as I can, like around the car. It's like spinning out, like all four tires on the side of the road. And then I get out on the pavement, and then I literally drive for my life. I like drove that car as fast as it would go for like an hour just to pull away from this guy.
Yeah.
And they were like, thank God. Thank God we're in a fast car.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, who knows what the fuck that guy was up to?
Dude, I'm telling you, there's so many sketchy situations that we get into, but I think those are the things that really kind of galvanize you, and make you, bond a little closer, And I think, when I first started doing that, they called it like the chaotic symphony, They like to not give you enough information at the beginning because everyone kind of galvanizes around being, and there's a lot of, talking and stuff on the WhatsApp and what's going on about, and so you kind of rely on each other and reach out and you start to bond that way, right? And at first they're mad, but then you get to Wednesday and everybody's like, oh man, yeah, it was crazy or whatever. And then Friday, everybody's, it's almost over, and everybody gets really sad about it, but I think that chaos is really what kind of galvanizes a lot of people into, remembering these stories and telling these stories, because if it wasn't extreme, you'd have nothing to say. I mean, there'd be nothing there for it,
Yeah, I mean, the fun part about gumball is the adventure of it. Like, you're going to get lost. You're going to take wrong turns. You're going to get pulled over. Your, partner is going to have to figure out how to tell you where to go and going to fuck that up for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just all fun. That's the whole thing. And if you take it too serious, like, you're going to be super stressed out. But it's pretty funny when it's all said and done. It's definitely an adventure. It's not for the faint at heart. I mean, you've done 7, so But like, that's what I'm saying is like, you got to be ready for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it is fun and there's some fun elements. You're driving in and out, but like driving 150 miles an hour for 5-6 hours at a time, like that takes like a little bit of focus.
Yeah.
So, like, be ready. I mean, especially when you're doing all the driving, but when it was most of the time you had another guy driver, right? You guys are switching off.
Switch off.
Yeah.
So you went from your company being successful and getting out of here to buying a jet?
No, we just are able to travel like on NetJets type stuff. Just a little bit easier, especially when there's not direct flights. So it makes it a little easier to get around.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, how much traveling do you do?
Quite a bit now. Actually, what we chose to do this year, we traditionally have traveled quite a bit because we like to see new things. We have chosen, we have a 6-year-old that would be going into first grade. She's young, so we've chosen to homeschool her. But while we homeschool her, we're going to show her all 50 states.
Yeah.
So we've knocked out a few. So we'll travel quite a bit. We travel, I mean, flying at least 120 plus hours a year in air. So quite a bit, and then international stuff that's not counted. So we're moving around quite a bit.
Anything left on the bucket list?
Oh man, it's so much. But this summer we knocked a couple things off. We, 2 years ago, we got married. We got engaged. We got married. 2 years ago, we got engaged. 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 We went on the Orient Express this summer. So we went to Paris. It's a famous train that started in like the 1890, I think. But it's a train ride that goes from Paris to Istanbul. Stop two of the cities. A stop that was Budapest and Bucharest, which was, what's cool. But it was an incredible experience. It's like black tie, which I'm not into dressing up usually, but it was black tie. It was just awesome, like experience. Yeah. And then Istanbul, I'd never been to. I'd say that's got to be on everybody's bucket list. I mean, there's 16.5 million people in this city that connects, Europe and Asia. And like, I mean, it's, the mosques are amazing. I mean, it's a cool city to see.
That's awesome.
But there's a lot more on the bucket list. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see if we can pair up and catch a few of them together. So
100%.
Yeah. Well, I know you got a lot of things to do today. I just want to say thanks for coming out and spending some time with us today. Really great story. And I, wish you all the success going forward. Really, really great dude. And I really appreciate your friendship.
Awesome. You too, man. Thanks a lot for having me. It was awesome to come here and have this conversation and just to see you.
Yeah, man. You too. Anyways, everybody, see you next time.